down the pipe. They were all funneled through the IT department. And I think that that's a fairly common model and maybe a common problem that a lot of you might have. What I determined when I got there, it was that I needed to develop some kind of workflow that would allow individuals and departments to control their own web space with as little support from my department as possible. The overall goal was to get the IT department out of publishing, which is essentially what website content management and design is. It's just a form of electronic publishing. There were other avenues in the law school that did publishing. We published our own brochures, published our own promotional literature, published our own newsletter, and all of that was done by support staff in the specific departments for which those publications were made. And so my goal or my vision for the website was that it should be handled pretty much the same way. The trick was getting there. But Jim, staff would say when I presented this idea to them, the website is on a computer. Your department supports computers, therefore you should continue doing the website. And this was a strange attitude that I found quite pervasive throughout the law school. In fact, when I started as IT director in fall of '98, our campus was in the midst of upgrading to PeopleSoft. And I was put on the campus-wide PeopleSoft committee as the law school representative because PeopleSoft had to do with computers. But the committee was an administrative committee made up of registrars and student services people who were concerned about how PeopleSoft could work for their work, for their business practices, which I knew nothing about. So that's just one example of the attitude that I came into and that I faced while I was trying to set up this content management workflow for the website. If it had to do with a computer, it was IT. The model that we eventually set up still has the IT director, that's me, as the webmaster. So in terms of overall strategy, design, technical support for the actual technical components of it, like the server, I'm still involved. But content creation is distributed, and that includes updating, editing, basic design decisions. We place most what I call volatile content in databases. This is course schedules, exams, and a number of things that I'll cover when I get to the examples. The databases are accessed through middleware. Again, this is more of a sort of technical part of it, which has been covered in other presentations. In particular, Joel McCleskey's presentation on Thursday, he's from the University of Houston, went into the whole web database middleware thing in great detail. And so if you need more information about that, take a look at Joel's presentation when it makes it onto the CALI website. And in addition, there was, I believe this was also on Thursday, Yolanda Jones and Trotter Hardy did a presentation on database and middleware technologies. So that's another good place to go for the technical components of it. There still is a lot of static content on our website, just plain old HTML, and for that we set up test and production servers. So staff who have direct access to editing the website only can edit in what is a test environment. And only after their edits, their new content, whatever they develop, passes either their own inspection and spell checking and whatever else, or in some cases their department heads or me do those pages make it onto the production server for the public. And we found that this eliminates a lot of problems that might arise from distributing the control of the website to so many people. And then those support staff who maintain the static content, we train them in front page. That's just what was running when I got there, and I haven't changed it. There are pros and cons of front page, and if anybody's ever used it, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Then for faculty who we decided, and I'll get to this a little bit later too, we decided not to train them in front page. We created a bunch of web forms to update that content in databases. And this is becoming a fairly common practice, I think, to keep content separate from form in a website and maintain the content in a database, which you can edit through any number of simple interfaces. I think that most of the examples that I've seen, though, have been in support of administrative functions like student record databases, career services databases, and we certainly have those. But a lot of our public content, a lot of the stuff that the public sees as just a web page, is also maintained in the database. and for reasons that will become clear. So I've already touched on a couple of the problems that we set out to solve by this model. So I'll go into a few of them in more depth. First of all, there was the problem of IT staff time and expertise. As I mentioned, anything to do with the website was considered the responsibility of the IT department. This was partly just a cultural view that the staff and faculty in the law school had. They didn't ask for a website. The IT department is the one who designed it in the first place, so they should be the ones to maintain it. However, most of the requests that we got were just for minor content updates or corrections. In one case, we have a biography and a CV page for each of our faculty. And a couple of months after I got there, one of the faculty members called me and just left a message on my voicemail saying, my daughter is now 8 instead of 7. Could you please make that change? So I called her back, and I thought, I think your daughter's pretty capable of making the change to the 8-year-old, seeing herself. Maybe you should be the one to provide guidance. She said, no. On my faculty biography page, it says that I'm the mother of 2 daughters, one's 7 and one's 5. My one daughter is now 8. So I thought, I didn't know how pervasive this practice was, and I wasn't about to find out. So it was really that event that kind of triggered my idea that something needed to be done about this. And so even if I pawned this off onto one of my staff members or even one of my student assistants, it would still be asking fairly specialized technical staff to do what I viewed was the equivalent of word processing. It's not to say that word processing is not an important function and can be highly specialized, but it's just not something that our IT department did. But apart from just self-interest and self-preservation of me and my staff and our respective sanities, there were some service aspects to our users to consider. We're an IT staff. We don't have time to do anything really. And so there were considerable delays on taking care of these content updates, which we viewed as relatively low priority. Secondly, we were constantly going back and forth, like in that example I mentioned to you with the staff member who had the 8-year-old daughter, to resolve ambiguities, questions, and bad handwriting. A lot of faculty and staff would submit requested updates by printing off the existing page and then just scribbling in the margins the changes that they want. And usually that wasn't clear to us, so we would have to go back and it would just start a chain. And there's also a problem that, the IT staff didn't really know much about what goes on in the law school except how the computers run. And so there were problems when we would go to convert documents into web format where we didn't really know what we were working with, and as a result, mistakes were made. And in one case, for our international law program, just because of a formatting problem, we ended up inadvertently merging 2 distinct international programs into one paragraph, which led a lot of visitors to the site to make inquiries about, how, can I get more information about this combined program? Which led our international program people to say, what combined program? And, it was just, we didn't know. We didn't know it wasn't a combined program. So there were a lot of potential problems in placing web content management in the IT department, beyond just simply the annoyance factor. There were support issues, though, that we looked at when we went to look at a more distributed content management model. Faculty, and maybe unwilling is a little bit harsh because this is just an assumption I made and is not based on any real resistance that I faced, but we just assumed that our faculty weren't going to want to learn a new application to do these essentially minor updates and corrections. Plus, it's Microsoft front page, and I don't want to voice that upon anybody who's not ready for it. But one of the real reasons is that we just didn't want to have to purchase a whole number of copies of software, install it, and train people in using it. So, how did we develop the model that we developed? First of all, it was more of an attitude adjustment, both on our part and on the part of the users that we support. We found that if we presented the idea of people doing their own web editing, coupled with having to learn a new program, having to get trained for that software, it created this image that the web was something distinct, it was something difficult, it was something separate, and it really was kind of going away from our plan to integrate web development into the regular kind of work that everybody did every day, such as word processing and email, which they apparently had no problems with, nor did they feel that those applications lived in the realm of IT like they did the website. So we took a look at how we presented this concept to the faculty and staff, decided that we needed to adopt a very casual, a very integrated, a very nonchalant kind of approach about it. Oh, it's just a website, it's just a web page. It's just like editing a memo to somebody. And so thus presented as simple as word processing, which when you use a program like Microsoft Front Page, more or less is. And we pointed out to them that if they normally produce something on paper, like their CV, like a biographical blurb for a conference, like a course description, then they can produce it on the web. And there are a number of ways to write it once and run it, well, not quite anywhere, but at least run it through a printer and onto the website. And so overall, the strategy can be summarized as building links between familiar knowledge and skills and new technologies. And that's really the approach that we used. Any time that we met with anybody about anything, we evaluated what they already knew and just presented the new technology in those terms. And that was incredibly helpful. There's also a component of tough love. We needed to learn to say no. And I want to, Elmer Masters gave a really good presentation yesterday on IT career paths, where he very frankly told, where he told a very frank story about, telling a faculty member, no, I won't come and update, I won't come and put a new toner cartridge in your computer. I'm the director of IT, that's my support staff. Yes, nobody's here, but, you'll have to wait till tomorrow. And so we met resistance, or when we met resistance, we used the sort of strategy of tough love, where we knew it was in their best interest to do it themselves. I heard a couple of people at presentations today talk about strategies where they would develop the first website for somebody, but then let them do the future ones. And we, I guess, just because we inherited a model where that had already been going on, we didn't feel that we really could do that. We didn't want the staff or the faculty to become reliant on us. In developing the model, the first step we did was we had to prioritize how we were going to roll it out. So we first identified web pages that require high rates of content update. There are the faculty biographies, people's kids' age, and they need to be changed. Course and exam schedules, of course, not only update once a semester, but sometimes update multiple times before a semester begins. Course descriptions, job postings for the career services, news and events. These were all items that we identified would reside in a database. The content would be in a database, and we would write our own middleware scripts to present that both to the public and to the staff who was responsible for maintaining it. We needed to select the technologies to do that. We settled on Microsoft Access just because we had it. We built simple HTML form front ends to connect to the database and to provide ways for staff and faculty to update the content. We wrote active server pages, scripts using VB script. The only reason we did this is because I already knew Visual Basic. It's not the best technology, it's just something we had laying around we didn't have to pay for. And likewise with Microsoft Front Page. That was what my predecessor had settled on. It was already there. It's impossible to remove once you install it, so I just kept it. And we secured everything with a combination of, we run Windows NT, so we just used NTFS permissions, database passwords, administrative keys, that sort of thing. And overall, this led to what I've already alluded to, the separation of form and content on the website. We developed flexible templates for web pages. The content was loaded into databases, and there were links built between these templates and the content. So nobody really had to know any kind of coding. That was all in the template. All they needed to do was change the content, and the web page would be updated. And they would do this through interfaces, the HTML forms. Then Good, the whole slide's on the screen. Then we had to sell this idea. Staff really, most of the staff used front page, updated static content. They didn't really have a problem with it. But to tell the faculty that they now had to update anything that was related to them themselves, we thought was going to be a hard sell. It turned out not to be as hard of a sell as we expected, but we still geared up for it, so to speak. We started with something personal, something that they, that meant something to them, and that was the biographies. I gathered web statistics and showed them how often people from the outside came in and looked at their biographies. You can't just have something up there and forget about it and let it go stale. We emphasized some of the more technical benefits. They would have faster turnaround time. Their information would be accurate. They could do it any time from anywhere. They could be at a conference like I am now and decide, well, I've got 15 minutes, I might as well add this conference appearance to my website while it's fresh in my mind. They no longer had to call us, and it avoided the sort of runaround. We made sure it was simple to use. Again, we relied on just simple HTML forms. For our faculty who had already discovered things like Amazon.com, they were familiar with filling out forms, and for those who weren't, it's a pretty simple technique to pick up. And we started off by presenting the idea to faculty who were already sympathetic to our cause and who agreed that it was a good idea and they didn't see any problem with it. And sort of in corridors and in faculty lounges where most of the work really gets done anyway, they won people over for us. On the staff side, we set up web experts in various departments, career services, admissions, etc. Simply because there was a lot of departmental content that was more static, not really suited to databases, mission statements, policies, that sort of thing. And we trained them on the basics of front page and provided templates for them to use. So again, they didn't have to worry too much about the format. They could just open up a page and start typing just like it was on a word processor. This is a bit of a digression, but throughout the process of doing this, we took the opportunity to define our role in the law school. And again, this sort of problem of defining what IT is, what we do, and where it should reside administratively in the organization is a much, much bigger issue. Again, Elmer Masters talked about it a bit yesterday at his IT career paths presentation, and I'm only going to touch on it briefly here, but this whole project with the website allowed us, sort of was a microcosm for handling this larger problem, which we've also done in a number of different contexts. And what we were able to do throughout this process is develop a departmental identity. We set up our own website, and one thing that Elmer mentioned yesterday was what a difficult time he had going to all the different law schools' websites and finding who the IT director was. Finding anything about the tech support department or the IT departments at law schools. Even for those law schools who do control their own website, I think that they often just, shoemaker's kids phenomenon or whatever. So we set up a website, we developed policies, we outlined duties and responsibilities, and communicating with users was a big one. We sent out email about everything we did. We're updating the website today, let us know what you think. I don't have much interaction with students, but whenever I meet a law student, their first reaction is, oh, you're the guy who always sends me all the email. And that, that could result in negative PR for one's department if the email is not relevant and is viewed as spam. But it did indicate, it does indicate to me that people recognize my name and they pay attention. Most importantly probably, clearly define what you do and what you don't. And I don't mean like set up 2 columns on your website, this is what we support, this is what we don't. But just on a one-to-one basis, when you're working with faculty or staff and you're an IT department, the website's a classic example. We decided that we weren't going to be responsible for the content management. We had we had my approval for that because it was my idea. And so, through methods that I already described, including tough love, we enforced that. We would not do your web updating for you. We would show you how to do it, but we will not do it for you. And if you don't want to learn, then your website's not going to get updated. And then just as a silly aside, create a logo, theme song, mascot, slogan, which we actually haven't done yet. The focus, though, on this is to define your IT department as an entity. What is it? What is it you do? What's your mission? Where do you fit in the organization structure? And until those things are all in place, you're not going to have any kind of leveraging point to implement something like the web model that we did. Okay, the results of all of this. How did we do? I'm going to show you some examples too. Right now, faculty update all their own biographies and CVs on the web. Or at least they're supposed to. They're responsible for doing so. If they don't, it lies on their shoulders. The benefits to this. Pages can keep up with the success of faculty. I'll show you no particular real reason for choosing this person, but one of our professors, Linda Green, was just named the Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, and I can see that I haven't updated my page for 640 by 480 compliance yet. But, and so when that change happened, she never contacted me or anybody in my department to make this change, but yet it's there. So either she did it or she had a secretary do it or somebody. But the point is I went to this page one day and I said, oh, that's nice, somebody figured it out. In fact, she even posted this picture. Her initial picture was just a headshot. She wanted this picture with a couple of her students. Pages can reflect the individual personalities of faculty. The template we've got set up for these is fairly static, so not really in the design, but in the content aspect of things. This is one of our professors, Altacharo, and she went through and went crazy with hyperlinks. She hyperlinked everything, including, at the end, she was born in 1958. She's hyperlinking to 1958. Brooklyn, New York, poker, foreign language study, cats, Star Trek, salsa. Can you imagine her calling my IT staff and saying, can you include this link on the board 1958 in my bio? Not to mention all this other stuff, links to her papers, to her work, everything.
Where does 1958 go?
Let's see, actually. The political graveyard. Born and died in 1958. Yeah, so go to Professor Charo's page and so yeah, that's something that really probably wouldn't exist and couldn't exist if the IT staff were left in charge of things. And of course, updates can be as timely and as frequent as a faculty member wishes. According to our statistics, there are some people who go and tweak their site once every couple of weeks. There are some people who haven't looked at it yet. And we've also got course descriptions online. So instructors, including adjunct faculty in this case, can update their course descriptions. There was a big project to gather the course descriptions in the first place. Student Services Department was requiring faculty to handwrite them on pieces of paper that they were going to collect in a big binder. And if students wanted to check out the binder and look at the course descriptions, they could. If somebody from off campus wanted to get the binder, they would send it down to the photocopying shop and send them 300 pages of course descriptions. So I caught wind of this project and said, no, hold on. We could do it this way. And in fact, we could do it this way. People could enter the course description once, and that would be it. And so over the course of the last 6 months, actually more than a year now, the faculty have been doing their course descriptions slowly but surely. And it's immediately available to the public. Since it's in a database, it's searchable. Let me show you. I'll link to it for some reason. So everything from the different areas of law that we teach, they can search for a particular course number, search for yeah. So we didn't really have any. Apart from writing the scripts and creating the database tables that support this, we didn't have anything to do with it. And this entry actually wasn't even here the last time I looked. So somebody's keeping it up.
Can I ask what you use when you bring in a database?
It's Microsoft Access, yeah. At the departmental level, there are a number of different things. I probably won't go through all these. Student services, course schedule, final exam database is now directly linked. So this is actually, they had been keeping the course schedule in a database anyway, and then exporting it to something and then marking it up and putting it on the web. This way, this is pulling live from their database. You can sort by any of these fields if you're looking by a particular instructor. Again, so instead of my department getting an Excel spreadsheet once every semester and then getting phone calls with updates every couple of days, we've eliminated that. I showed you course descriptions. We have law review articles and subscriptions. Law review manages all that stuff now on the web. And we have news and events, which is probably the most distributed. Matt. Thank you. Probably the most distributed of our projects. We have about 12 or 14 people. Of course. 12 or 14 people responsible for posting events to our events calendar from all over the law school. And we keep course schedules. We keep, it's right here in the law school news column. News stories, news releases. Again, this was all stuff. In fact, people weren't even. This has gotten a lot of people to think about the web when they hadn't been thinking about it before. News events would go out to people on email, or they'd be sent to newspapers. Nobody ever thought, even when IT was responsible for this stuff, they never thought to give the IT guys, the news story to post on the web. Sometimes we'd pay attention to our email and we'd see something and we'd think, this should be on the web. But the decision making, as well as the actual publishing of it, was sometimes being made by our department, which is kind of a scary thought. And so in this case, the program that, or the website that the PR person for the law school uses to send out the email, then also sends it right to this webpage at the same time. So she only has to type it up once. And for our events calendar, we have about 12 or 14 people who post, actually there's not much going on here in June, but who post stuff that's going on in the law school. They have a simple little web form to input all of this stuff too. I don't want to do whatever it is you're Okay, and then again, getting back to probably the initial problem that I faced, our IT staff time is preserved to a certain extent. We no longer do any web editing at all. We have very few installations of client software to install and support. Again, since only a handful of people actually use FrontPage to do any kind of editing, most everybody else uses these web forms that we've developed. We don't really have to support a new software package. Future directions. One thing I really hoped to have, we're going to add more dynamic content. There's a lot of stuff that we could put into the database. And we could provide people more customization. Right now, everything's very static, very simple. And that was done, I think, to prevent the kind of, oh, wow, I can put background images on my website phenomenon. But, there are some people who have a better sense of style than that, who could use more options. But one thing I hope to have ready for this conference and I don't is a sort of simple course site creation tool. Something that kind of goes between absolutely nothing and a Lexis Web Course in a Box or TWEN product. Something that's just a basic syllabus, reading list of links kind of thing that I think would be greatly used throughout our law school. And so that's about it. So don't forget to fill out your evaluation forms, and if anybody's got any questions, I will answer. Yeah?
Did you contract out the initial design of your site, just the layout of the site?
No, I did that all. My staff and I sort of decided we were going to do an overhaul of the site and then cut it off at that point. Yeah.
In your news and events, what did you use to calendar that?
That's a series of scripts written in VB script. that query a database. So that's something we did ourselves too.
And do you have a problem if you have 14 different people entering things with that? Or can they get from there anywhere else to crash your site? That's just the thing I was worried about. If you get 15 people entering stuff all the time.
Yeah, well, it's not. I mean, it's not something as intensive as like a student records database where information is going to be updated a lot. It's not updated all that often, and there's a lot of error trapping, and there are mechanisms for checking conflicts with other events. And then the database itself provides record locking and stuff, so two people can't be working on the same record at the same time. So yeah, we have, but I think that's overkill. I don't really see that would be a problem with something like that. Yeah.
Two questions. One of them is, how long did it take you to do the initial overhaul to get this all set up?
Well, it's been a kind of a gradual process. I think timeline probably about 6 months.
And the second one related is, what kind of timelines have you set up to do more large-scale upgrades or changes in the site as opposed to the content?
Changes in the form and in the
form
field.
and structure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, we just completed one that mainly addressed top-level pages. The content in the lower level pages is still kind of undergoing. But as we go through and we update that form, we do things like add style sheets, for example, to the page, replace static HTML with the dynamic content in places where we can, so that in the future, all we have to do is either update the style sheet or update the templates, and then the change takes effect on the whole site. So as we go through and complete the most recent update, which was a couple of months ago, we're doing that with a mind to things like that. So, yeah.
Who are you working with to make those decisions at that level? As we're looking to feel as they are implementing mostly IT, or do you bring in a users group, or how do you?
We, for the first overhaul of the site, which was a couple of months after I got there, about 6 months after I got there, I had mocked up a few versions of it and just sent out some test URLs to the staff and faculty in general and said, what do you think? Most of the librarians responded. A couple of the faculty did. We haven't set up anything like a formal web committee. We don't really have a formal technology committee. But I would say that, the website was initially set up by the IT department. There was no interest throughout the law school whatsoever. And that's pretty much remained the way they like it. Yeah, we appreciate the fact that we have a website, but nobody has wanted to really get in and meddle with it too much. So, in the back.
Can you show us the web form, say, put into the instructions?
Oh, sure. Yeah, in fact, I was going to do that. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, it's going to look kind of cramped on a 640 by 480 screen, but 640 by 480. And we're actually in the process of sort of redoing how we get into the biographies, but I'll go to my own because that's the only one I can log into. So if I go to my own website, here's my biography. Here at the bottom, little unobtrusive link, update this page. This is what we hope to get rid of. It's just that we didn't, giving people the URL for their biography and then the URL, a different one for how to update it, was too much. So we just put it right there. So I log in to my MT network. And all of the information then that appears on the biography appears in these form fields. So yeah, people can even change their names. So they're encouraged not to. And I can go in and put down in what month is this? June 2000. Jim spoke at CALI.
It's some HTML with perhaps a subset.
Right, yeah, and basically any, in fact we don't have like a little window just to show them if they want to include bold or italic or whatever. So then I click submit, view my biography page, and the changes right there. And this is the site, this is the page that the public would view if somebody, you know, God forbid, were to come and look at my page right now. And getting photographs of everybody was a real pain, but we pretty much did that.
I didn't see the photograph back there before.
No. Right now, the photograph, I mean, again, just because that involves some knowledge of file system management, trying to find where the image file is. If they want to change their image, they do actually have to tell us. And also, I mean, we did that partly to preserve, to protect ourselves, because with, you know, somebody taking a picture with a digital camera, the default is, you know, 640 by 480, 300 DPI resolution image. We wanted to make sure nothing like that was going up on our website.
Yet that fact, remember you folks before updated her own photograph, like she did.
Well, actually, she must have submitted that to one of my staff members. Yeah, I just didn't remember seeing the photo of it before. Yeah.
Are you deployed by a larger IT department at the university, or who decided that you and your staff were needed within the law school?
The law school.
There's no the law school. There is somebody.
The assistant dean of administration, who is no longer there. Back in, I think, '96, IT was coordinated out of the library as, you know, a natural evolution. And then I think also in '96, an incoming assistant dean of administration sort of grabbed everybody and pulled them over into the law school through some sort of political machinations that I'm not familiar with, and set up shop, essentially.
You report to that individual?
Well, that's actually, that individual is no longer there. And so what happened is, in his absence, my position was reformulated at a higher level, and also includes facilities management.
Do you not have any imprimatur from the General University about website guidelines?
Yeah, but they're very broad. I think our policies, of course, including, you know, that govern content and commercial content and stuff like that. I think the only hard and fast rule is that we have to have a link back to the university's website. Other than that, it's entirely up to the
There's nothing
department.
there about keeping the site fresh. So you're just gonna let your faculty who don't care not care.
Well, I think that the woman who's in charge of external relations badgers them every now and then. She gets a lot of requests from people who either don't go to the website for biographical information, then she'll go to the website, and if it's out of date, she'll badger them. And I think maybe once a year she circulates a memo encouraging people to take a look at their website. But again, that's, we view the website as one of just several publications that we're responsible for and that she's responsible for. So that kind of thing, it falls under her responsibility. Yeah.
Also, the translation of the information, static information from the test site to the website, is your department responsible for that?
No, that's all at the departmental level.
So you're giving somebody access to that?
Yeah, it's just a series of scripts that copy files from one place to another. For example, in career services, the career services dean wanted the final say on anything that went up on their site. And so one of her staff members does, the updating or does whatever is required to the site, and then has to submit those changes to the assistant dean, who reviews them and then pushes the button, and everything migrates over to production.
Do you have a sense of the percentage of faculty members who have actually taken advantage of the updating?
No, in fact, it's. I was going to pull those statistics before I left, and I just forgot. I don't really have a good sense of that. Yeah.
In our school, we've got about 30 faculty. We have one person who maintains their own webpage, and we do it for the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as a librarian, I would email, and webmaster, I would email them and say, give me your updates on how we're not here. So finally, at the dean level, we printed out all the old stuff that's there to embarrass them, and sent it to them and said, please make your updates and give it to them. We got 8.
Yeah.
I'm just in awe that you can get these people to do this.
All right. Well, thanks for attending. It's still 20 to 2. So.